It was a cold, rainy evening in downtown Chicago. The streets were slick with water, reflecting the towering skyscrapers that loomed over the city. A young black boy, no older than 14, stood outside a lavish steakhouse, his clothes tattered, his hands trembling from the cold. His name was Malik, and right now, he was staring through the restaurant's glass window, watching wealthy diners laugh and feast on meals that cost more than his family's entire weekly groceries. Across the table, an arrogant billionaire, Thomas Whitmore, noticed the boy. With his silk suit and expensive watch, Whitmore had built an empire in real estate, crushing anyone who dared to stand in his way. He sneered as he saw Malik outside. Pathetic, he muttered to his business partners, always looking for handouts. No work ethic, no drive, just waiting for someone to save them. The men at his table chuckled, nodding in agreement. But what happened next would flip the entire city on its head. Scene transition. Introducing the struggle, Malik wasn't looking for a handout. He was looking for a chance. His mother, a hard-working nurse, had been injured on the job, leaving him unable to afford rent. His father? Long gone. With eviction looming, Malik had spent the day hustling, offering to clean shoes, carry groceries, anything to make an honest dollar. But the world wasn't kind to kids like him. He had overheard that Whitmore was one of the richest men in the city. If anyone could offer him work, it was him. Taking a deep breath, Malik walked into the restaurant, his heart pounding in his chest. The room went silent as a damp, shivering boy approached Whitmore's table. "Excuse me, sir," Malik said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I'm not looking for money. Just a job. Anything. I can clean, run errands, whatever you need." Whitmore barely looked at him. Instead, he took a sip of his wine and smirked. "You? Work for me?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "What do you know about business, kid? You can't even afford a coat." The men at the table erupted in laughter. Malik felt his face burn with humiliation, but he stood his ground. "I learn fast," he said. "Just give me a chance." Whitmore wiped his mouth with a silk napkin and leaned back, enjoying his own cruelty. "Tell you what," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "If you can answer one business question correctly, I'll give you a job. But if you get it wrong, you leave and never bother me again." The entire restaurant was watching now. Malik swallowed hard. He had nothing to lose. Whitmore smirked. "If I buy a property for $1 million and sell it for $2 million, what's my profit margin?" Malik hesitated. He wasn't great at math, but he had seen his mother budget their bills, stretching every dollar. He thought about her lessons, how she explained percentages. 50%, Malik said confidently. Whitmore's smirk grew wider. "Wrong. That's a 100% profit. See? Business isn't for everyone." Laughter erupted again. Malik felt his stomach drop. The billionaire waved him away dismissively. "Get lost, kid." Malik clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. He had walked in with hope, but he was walking out with nothing but humiliation. Scene transition, the turning point. As Malik stepped outside, he heard another voice, a deep, commanding one. Actually, Whitmore, the kid, was right. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to see an older black man in a tailored navy suit, standing near the bar. His presence commanded respect. Whitmore's smirk faltered. "What?" The man stepped forward. "You forgot to account for the original investment," he said, his voice smooth but firm. "A $1 million investment that sells for $2 million has a 50% margin. The kid knew that. You didn't." Murmurs filled the restaurant. Whitmore's face turned red. "And who the hell are you?" he snapped. The man smiled, extending his hand to Malik. "Name's William Carter, CEO of Carter Enterprises." Gasps filled the room. Carter Enterprises was one of the largest black-owned businesses in the country. Unlike Whitmore, Carter had built his empire with integrity, lifting others up along the way. "I like the way you think, kid," Carter said to Malik. "How'd you know that answer?" Malik swallowed his nerves. "My mom taught me how to budget." Carter nodded. "Smart woman." Then he turned back to Whitmore. "I think this boy just proved he deserves a shot." Whitmore's jaw clenched. "That's my call to make." Carter chuckled. Not anymore. He pulled out his checkbook and started writing. I just bought out your biggest commercial property, he said, which means your tenants. They're mine now, and so is your cash flow. Whitmore's face drained of color. The restaurant gasped. He snatched the check from Carter's hand, and his eyes bulged. This is a joke, Whitmore stammered. You can't just... Oh, I can, Carter interrupted. And I did. He turned to Malik. How'd you like a real job, son? One where your intelligence is respected. Tears welled in Malik's eyes. I'd love that, sir. Carter put a hand on his shoulder. Then consider yourself hired. The restaurant erupted in whispers. Whitmore sat frozen, gripping the worthless check in his hand. His power, his arrogance, meant nothing now. But this was only the beginning, because what happened next would leave the entire city in shock. Days later, Malik walked into Carter Enterprises, nervous but excited. His mother's eyes shone with pride as she hugged him before he left that morning. But as soon as he stepped into Carter's office, something felt off. Carter was staring at his phone, his face unreadable. What's wrong? Malik asked. Carter exhaled, handed him the phone. The screen displayed a news headline. Billionaire Thomas Whitmore accuses Carter Enterprises of fraudulent takeover. Malik's stomach twisted. Whitmore wasn't done playing dirty. Carter set the phone down and leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled together. He looked calm, but Malik could tell he was thinking, strategizing. I expected this, Carter finally said. Whitmore doesn't like losing. He's going to fight tooth and nail to make sure no one sees him as weak. Malik swallowed hard. Does this mean he can take back what you bought? Carter shook his head. Not legally, but legally and morally are two different things for a man like Whitmore. Just then the office phone rang. Carter picked up, and after a brief silence, his face darkened. He's here. He glanced at Malik before nodding. Send him up. Malik's heart pounded. Whitmore? Here? The elevator dinged outside, and moments later, the glass doors of Carter's office swung open. Whitmore strode in, his usual smug expression replaced with cold fury. He was flanked by two lawyers, both in sharp suits and carrying briefcases. Carter didn't stand. He didn't even look fazed. Whitmore, you're early. Whitmore didn't sit. He threw a folder onto Carter's desk. Enjoy your little victory while you can. You think you've won? You think you can embarrass me, steal my property, and walk away? Carter opened the folder and skimmed through the pages. Malik tried to read over his shoulder, but the legal jargon made his head spin. Whatever it was, Carter didn't look concerned. You're accusing me of an illegal buyout? Carter asked, flipping another page. I'm proving it, Whitmore spat. See, you might have money, Carter, but I have connections. The city's politicians, judges, bankers, they all know me. You think they'll let you just take what's mine? Carter chuckled. What's yours? Whitmore, your property was for sale. I paid for it fair and square. Whitmore's lip curled. You manipulated the deal. You used that street rat to humiliate me. His eyes flicked to Malik, full of venom. Malik clenched his fists but forced himself to stay still. He wouldn't give Whitmore the satisfaction of seeing his anger. Carter leaned forward. The only person who humiliated you was yourself. You underestimated a kid who knew more about business than you did in front of a room full of witnesses. Whitmore's lawyers exchanged glances. They knew it was true. Whitmore ignored them. I don't care about that. What I care about is my empire, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep it intact. Carter closed the folder. So why are you really here? To threaten me? Whitmore smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm here to warn you. Drop the deal. Give me back my properties, and I'll make this all go away. If you don't, he leaned in slightly, I'll ruin you. I'll make sure your business is audited, your accounts frozen, your deals blocked. You'll be fighting lawsuits for the next 10 years. Carter sighed and stood up. He walked around the desk until he was standing just inches from Whitmore, looking him in the eye. You think you can scare me? Whitmore smirked. I don't think. I know. For a long moment, Neither man spoke. Then, to Malik's surprise, Carter smiled. But it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of a man who had already won. "You don't get it, do you?" Carter said, shaking his head. "I don't play by your rules. I built my empire without cutting corners. My books are clean. My deals are solid. You want to fight me? Go ahead. But the only reputation getting destroyed will be yours." Whitmore's smirk faltered for just a second before he forced it back. "We'll see about that." He turned on his heel, his lawyers scrambling to follow him as he stormed out of the office. As soon as he was gone, Malik exhaled, feeling like he'd been holding his breath the entire time. "That guy is a snake." Carter nodded. "And snakes bite when they feel cornered." Malik frowned. "Do you think he'll actually try to ruin you?" Carter sat back down. "Not try. He will. And we need to be ready." Over the next week, Whitmore launched an all-out war against Carter Enterprises. Suddenly, Carter's company was under investigation for tax fraud, a baseless claim, but one that made headlines. Banks started hesitating on loans. Business partners backed out of deals. Whitmore was using his influence to chip away at Carter's empire, bit by bit. Malik watched it all unfold, feeling helpless. "This isn't fair," he said one evening in Carter's office. "He's just making stuff up." Carter sighed. "That's what people like him do. They don't fight fair." Malik thought for a long moment. Then an idea struck him. "What if we fight back?" Carter looked at him. "And how do you suggest we do that?" Malik took a deep breath. "Whitmore's rich, right? But money isn't his real power. It's his reputation. The image he built. What if we tear that down?" Carter raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Malik's mind raced. He's probably done shady things for years. People like that always have skeletons in their closet. We just need to find them. And when we do, Malik's eyes darkened. We expose him. Carter leaned back, studying Malik. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You might just be onto something." That night, Malik dove into research. He looked through old articles, public records, anything he could find. Hours passed, then days. And then he found it, buried deep in an old news archive. There was an article about a housing project Whitmore had developed years ago. A project that mysteriously collapsed after a few months, displacing dozens of families. The cause? Faulty construction. The company responsible for the construction? One of Whitmore's shell companies. Malik's hands shook as he clicked through the records. Whitmore had cut corners, saved millions by using cheap materials, and when the building started falling apart, he blamed contractors and walked away without consequence. But this time, he wouldn't walk away. Malik rushed to Carter's office, practically bursting through the door. "We got him," he said, slamming the printed records onto Carter's desk. "We have proof." Carter picked up the papers, his eyes scanning the documents. Slowly, his expression shifted from curiosity to something more dangerous. "This," he said, his voice low, "is exactly what we needed." Malik grinned. "So what do we do now?" Carter looked up, his eyes gleaming with determination. "Now!" He set the papers down. "Now we destroy Thomas Whitmore." But what neither of them knew was that Whitmore had one last trick up his sleeve. The night air was thick with tension as Carter and Malik sat in Carter's office. The stack of incriminating documents spread across the desk like a loaded gun. The evidence against Whitmore was undeniable. The man had built his empire on deception, cutting corners and leaving innocent people in ruin. And now, they had the power to expose him. Carter leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. "This is it," he murmured. "This is the kind of scandal that can destroy a man." Malik nodded, his heart racing. "So, what's the plan? How do we release this?" Carter tapped his fingers on the desk. "We go public. News stations, social media, online forums, everywhere. We make sure the world knows exactly who Thomas Whitmore really is." Malik's eyes gleamed. He could already picture it. Whitmore's name plastered across headlines, his smug face turning to sheer panic as his empire crumbled beneath him. But as if fate had heard their conversation, Carter's office phone rang, shattering the moment. Carter hesitated before answering. Carter speaking. Silence. Then a low chuckle. You think you've won? Malik tensed. Whitmore. Carter's face hardened. You must really be desperate, Whitmore, calling me personally. Whitmore sighed dramatically. I admire your persistence, Carter. I really do. But you should know something about me. I never lose. Carter's grip tightened on the phone. Your time is up, Whitmore. We have everything we need to expose you. Whitmore chuckled again. Oh, I know. I had a little peek at those documents. Malik's breath caught in his throat. How did he? Nice work, kid, Whitmore continued. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. But intelligence means nothing when you're playing against someone like me. Carter's eyes flicked to Malik, his expression unreadable. What are you trying to say? I'm saying, Whitmore drawled, that you might want to check your office security. A sharp knock at the door made Malik jump. Carter motioned for him to stay put as he strode over and opened it. Two men in dark suits stood there, stone-faced. One flashed a badge. Mr. Carter, we have a warrant to search these premises. Malik's stomach dropped. Whitmore's laughter echoed through the phone. Oops, did I forget to mention? The authorities seem to think Carter Enterprises has been engaging in some questionable business practices. Carter's face remained impassive, but Malik could see the tension in his jaw. This is a setup, he said coldly. Of course it is, Whitmore admitted cheerfully. But by the time you prove that, your reputation will be in shambles. Your investors will leave. Your assets will freeze. And me? I'll be sitting comfortably while you drown in legal battles. Malik could barely breathe. This wasn't happening. They were supposed to have Whitmore cornered. How did he turn around so quickly? Step aside, sir. One of the agents instructed Carter. Carter locked eyes with Malik before nodding and stepping back, allowing the agents inside. They wasted no time, rifling through files, checking computers. One of them picked up the incriminating documents against Whitmore. Malik's heart pounded. Wait, that's... The agent's sharp glare silenced him. This is evidence in an ongoing investigation. Carter took a deep breath, keeping his composure. You're making a mistake. The agent gave him a cold look. We'll see about that. The office was in chaos. Malik watched helplessly as months of work were torn apart in front of him. Whitmore had done it. He had flipped the script in his favor once again. The moment the agents left, taking boxes of files and computer hard drives with them, Carter slammed his fist on the desk. That son of a... Malik felt a lump in his throat. What do we do now? Carter exhaled slowly, his mind already working. We fight back, but not the way he expects. Malik frowned. What do you mean? Carter turned to him, eyes blazing with determination. Whitmore thinks he's won because he plays dirty. He thinks taking our evidence will stop us. But we don't need those papers to take him down. Malik stared at him, realization dawning. You mean we go straight to the victims? Carter nodded. Exactly. The families he displaced. The people he scammed. We find them. We let them tell their stories. Malik's pulse quickened, and we make sure the world listens. The next few days were a whirlwind. Malik and Carter worked tirelessly, tracking down former tenants from Whitmore's failed housing project, uncovering more dirt through public records, and gathering testimonies from people who had suffered at his hands. Then, Carter made the move Whitmore wasn't expecting. Instead of leaking the story to news outlets that Whitmore could bribe, Carter and Malik took it straight to the people. A live-stream press conference. The day arrived, and Malik stood beside Carter as cameras and reporters filled the room. Carter stepped up to the podium, his voice steady. For too long, powerful men like Thomas Whitmore have manipulated the system to serve their greed. Today, that ends. He gestured behind him, where a large screen lit up, showing pictures of the crumbling buildings, the families who had been forced to leave their homes, and records proving Whitmore's involvement. The room erupted in murmurs. Reporters whispered among themselves, snapping pictures and typing furiously on their laptops. Carter turned to the crowd. This is the truth, and we won't stop until justice is served. Malik watched as Whitmore's name trended online within minutes. Social media exploded. People demanded answers. And for the first time, Whitmore had no control over the narrative. Malik felt a rush of adrenaline. They had done it. They had turned the tide. But then, Carter's phone buzzed. He picked it up, his face darkening. What? Malik leaned in. What's wrong? Carter's jaw tightened. Whitmore? He just made bail. Malik's stomach sank. Bail? For what? Carter's expression was grim. Embezzlement. Fraud. They arrested him this morning. Malik's breath caught. That's good, right? That means the authorities are finally onto him. Carter exhaled sharply. It would be good if he wasn't already planning his next move. Malik frowned. What do you mean? Carter turned to him, his eyes cold. I mean, he just sent me a message. Malik's blood ran cold. What did it say? Carter's grip tightened on his phone. Checkmate. Carter stared at his phone screen, Whitmore's message glaring back at him like a taunt. Checkmate. Malik's heart pounded. What does he mean, checkmate? Carter exhaled sharply, his eyes dark with realization. Whitmore isn't just making threats. He's making moves. Before Malik could ask another question, Carter's office door burst open. A frantic assistant rushed in, her face pale. Sir, there are reporters outside. They're saying... She hesitated, eyes darting between them. Saying what? Carter snapped. The assistant swallowed hard. That you've been accused of fraud. Malik froze. What? Carter's face remained unreadable, but Malik could see the tension in his jaw. That bastard. The assistant hesitated before continuing. And they're saying you framed Whitmore. A beat of silence passed between them. Then Malik shot to his feet. That's a lie. Everyone saw the evidence. We have the testimonies, the proof. Doesn't matter, Carter interrupted, rubbing his temples. Whitmore still has influence. He's using every trick in the book to shift the blame onto me. Malik clenched his fists. We need to fight back. Carter sighed, his mind racing. We can't just fight back. We need to end this, once and for all. Malik took a deep breath. Then what's the next move? Carter met his eyes, determination flashing in his gaze. We bring Whitmore down, not just in the media, but legally. We expose him in a way he can't escape. Malik nodded. Then let's do it. The next few hours were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and last-minute planning. Carter and Malik worked tirelessly, gathering every piece of evidence they had left. Witnesses were brought in, lawyers were called, and one final, calculated move was set into motion. And then came the moment of truth. Carter stood at the press podium, cameras flashing around him. Malik stood by his side, heart pounding in his chest. Carter cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to address the false allegations against me. But more importantly, I stand here to expose the real criminal, Thomas Whitmore. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Carter nodded to Malik, who pressed a button on his laptop, sending a pre-recorded video onto the massive screen behind them. The footage played Whitmore, in his own words, admitting to bribery, fraud, and destruction of evidence. His voice was clear, his face undeniable. Gasps filled the room. Reporters scrambled to capture every second. Social media exploded within minutes. Carter turned back to the audience. That's the truth. And now, the authorities will have no choice but to act. As if on cue, sirens blared in the distance. Moments later, police officers stormed the building, and in the middle of the chaos, a handcuffed Thomas Whitmore was dragged into view, his once smug face twisted in rage. You think this is over? Whitmore snarled as he was shoved past Carter and Malik. You think you've won? Carter smirked. No, Whitmore, you lost the moment you underestimated us. Malik stepped forward, locking eyes with the man who had tried to ruin them. Enjoy prison. The cameras captured it all, the downfall of a powerful man at the hands of the very people he had underestimated. And as Whitmore was shoved into the police car, the world finally saw the truth. That night, Carter and Malik sat in the same office where it all began. Only this time there was no fear, no uncertainty, just victory. Carter turned to Malik, a rare smile on his face. You did good, kid. Malik chuckled. We did good. Carter nodded. And you know what? I think this is just the beginning for you. Malik's eyes widened. What do you mean? Carter leaned forward. You fought for justice. You refused to back down. That's a rare thing. And I think you have a future in this. Malik's heart swelled with pride. For the first time, he saw something he never thought possible. A future. Carter patted his shoulder. Now go celebrate. You earned it. Malik grinned, stepping outside into the night air. The weight that had once burdened him was gone. Because once upon a time, he was just a struggling kid trying to survive. And now, he was the reason justice was served. A rich man saw a black kid struggling. And what he did next shocked everyone. What a journey. This is the kind of story that proves that no matter where you come from, you can fight for what's right and win. If this story inspired you, don't leave without hitting that like button. And we want to hear from you. What did you think of the ending? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you love powerful stories like this, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that will leave you speechless. We have more incredible stories coming your way. You won't want to miss them.